Welcome to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club. My name's Noddy, joined as always by Stevo, and in this episode number 14, we're going to talk about the game just played against the Saints, a quick VFL update, a few general topics in the AFL, the game ahead against the Hawks, and finish off with all of our tips for the rest of the round. So to all you Cygnets and Swanlings out there, fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. On a beautiful winter's afternoon last Sunday, the 5th of June, in front of 19,000 people at the Sydney Cricket Ground, the 6th place Swans defeated the 12th place Saints by 9 points, with a final score of 13-14-92 to 12-11-83. Okay, Stevo, first impressions. What did you think of that?
Oh, look, mate, it wasn't so fun to watch at the end, was it? It was torture. It was horrible. The last couple of minutes was rough, but we got the win. And look, St Kilda are a solid team when they turn up to play. This week they turn up to play, and we got them on one of their good days. And I think it's getting to the point now too where for these teams that are outside the eight, because we're in this bottom half of the eight, we're kind of seen as a bit of a gettable scalp for them. So they rise for us the same way that we're going to rise for top four games. And the past 2 weeks we got Carlton like that. And we've got St Kilda that way. We got Collingwood in a bit of a mood like that too. We got Fremantle like that, and 3 out of 4 we've risen up to it, which was good. And yeah, like I said, it was tight at the end, but there were bits of the first and last quarters, I think, where we looked like we might even kick away with it a bit. But they did well. They came back into the game, and in the end of it, they blew some chances to lead late, but we blew chances towards the end too to extend it out. And we led most of the game, and we led for the whole final quarter. So at the end of the day, I was happy with the win. Yeah, and 4 points for sure.
They were my first impressions as well, mate. So all I'll add is that the crowd was obviously a bit down on other home games this year, but you'd say that's largely due to the COVID rescheduling. We had been averaging about 30,000 people per game to date, but as I mentioned, we only had about 19,000 this game. The other thing I'll say is the ins this week, which were Hickey, Fox, and Marty and McDonald, all had solid games and deserved their recall and inclusions. In terms of key takeaways, what were yours, mate?
I think I was really happy that 2 weeks in a row now we've won games that we should win against teams that are below us on the ladder. And in the earlier part of the season, we haven't done that. I mean, Gold Coast is the classic example of a slip like that, but also Giants, Fremantle, that were games that we probably thought we could have got against teams that were below us on the ladder. And I like the fact that we've been able to do that 2 weeks in a row now. It's a sign of a maturing team that just gets the job done when it does. But I guess having said that, it'd also be nice if the Swans could deliver us just a couple of comfortable victories that we could sit back and enjoy watching the last quarter rather than biting fingernails and edging forward on the couch or the SCG bucket seat, wherever you happen to be. I think the last time we had a game that was over in our favour by the start of the final term was Richmond in round 3. So it's been a while. So it'd be nice to get a good one, like an easy one. And then I guess in terms of the game too, watching the game at the end, there was a lot of talk about St Kilda's kicking for goal and how that cost them the match. And yeah, in the final moments, they certainly blew some chances that could have got them ahead and could have helped them pinch the win. But, I watched them. We both watched back through the whole game and looked at every side's shots at goal. And the Swans had just as many bad misses in that game as the Saints actually did. So on that level, I think the ledger kind of squared up.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think we both went through and wrote gettable for all the shots that were missed. But and there were a bunch for us. But look, for me, nothing really separated the two teams on paper, and we'll go through a few stats later on. But it really wasn't a dominant performance by the Swans by any means. But as you mentioned, we hung on to get another win, and it's left us sitting quite nicely at 8-4. I will mention here that there were 4 50-metre penalties, 2 which directly led to goals and 2 which indirectly led to goals. All 4 were extremely soft. And if they haven't already, King and Caulfield should be fined for flopping, because that was straight out of the Alex Rance playbook for how to milk a penalty and flop. But look, if the Saints didn't get gifted those 4, they probably wouldn't have been in that position to steal the victory from us. So that's something to think about, I think. But in terms of quarter-by-quarter breakdown, I'll just do that quickly. We won the first quarter 4-6 to Saints 3-4. They won the second quarter 2-3 to our 2-1. We won the third quarter 4-4 to their 4-0. And then they won the last quarter 3-4 to our 3-3. In any case, we were victorious by 9. So it does paint a very close game on the scoreboard there as well. In terms of stats, Stevo, throw me some numbers, mate.
Oh, look, my number for this game actually was 88, and that's because we were ahead for 88% of total game time. So like you said, it was a really tight game that never really felt like there was much in it, but we kind of had we had our noses ahead for most of it. They got their noses ahead briefly in the first quarter, again in the second quarter, and then again late in the third quarter. I think their maximum lead at any point was in the first quarter, and that was by 7 points. And every time they did get ahead, we were able to answer with multiple goals and get it back a bit more on our terms. And so even though it certainly was close on the scoreboard and not a very comfortable game to watch, I wasn't entirely stressed. Like, I kind of watching it felt that, I think we've got this, and at some point we're going to have to do what we need to do to win it, and we will. And we did, and we got a nasty scare at the end, but we got away with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, I was going through the stats, mate, and I really couldn't find anything that jumped out as to one team having a clear advantage over the other. It was very, very even, really. I mean, the only thing if I'm really nitpicking, is that our goal kicking conversion was lower than St Kilda's. We were 48%, they were 52%, as was our percentage of inside 50s that turned into goals. So we were 23 and they were 24.5. So if anything, it says that they were better in front of goals than us. So that contradicts the commentators, doesn't it? So look, the last time there was a game decided by single digits between the Swans, Horse, John Longmire, the coach, was actually still assistant coach. And that was round 1 of 2012 when the Saints beat us by 8 points at ANZ. So it just goes to show that it's been, it hasn't been this close for, I think, almost 10 years. So over 10 years. In any case, as we've said, we've got the victory. We're now 6 wins and 1 loss at home. That 1 loss was against the Giants. And we're 2 wins and 3 losses away. And those 3 losses were the Suns, the Demons, and the Dockers. So looking pretty good on all fronts there. All right, Stevo, favourite moments. What were your favourite moments of the game?
I think my favourite from the whole game actually was the very final, almost the very final play, the play that led up to our last goal. So Higgins had sprayed that shot, which would have put them ahead. And there was about a minute and a half to go or something. And so we had the kick in, and we bring the ball up across the far side, like the far from the broadcast side. And then there was a long kick to McInerney on a wing, and he took a really strong mark. And he's not really a sort of bloke you think about as taking sort of big contested marks, but he took a really, really bold contested mark, which I liked. And then the ball comes forward to Franklin. Franklin's running in the pocket, sort of around the boundary in goal scoring range, a sort of place where Buddy on his day would probably pot at least half of them or more, and he doesn't. And that's what I really liked about it, that he assesses the situation as, okay, I know there's about a minute to go in this game. I could take a shot and win this for certain, but I'm probably 50-50, maybe a bit better. If I miss it, they're going to get a kick in and they can take the ball back down and have one more chance to win the game. So instead, he centers the ball, Rowbottom wins the free kick, kicks a goal, and we win the game on the back of some like really mature, composed play from one of our youngest guys and then one of our oldest guy. So I really liked it. Yeah, that was my favorite.
That was a good one. For mine, mate, it was the last goal of the third quarter. Again, McInerney, there's that name. He lays a really strong tackle on Hill. Hewitt gathers and handballs to Warner, who kicks to Wicks, who kicks nicely to Parker inside 50. Parker takes largely, I think it was an uncontested mark, and then goes full Atlas mode and says, "I've got this, guys." Points to the sticks, lines it up, and then threads it. It was a beautiful kick off the boot. And that for me was the moment, because although there were a few moments in the fourth where it got close, we never actually lost the lead from that point onwards. So that for me was probably my favourite moment. Honourable mention to Joel Amarty's work in the ruck. He did very well against Paddy Ryder, and I think Battle went in there as well. He had 14 disposals, 6 marks, 3 of which were contested, 5 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, and 9 contested possessions. So a very good game, and I think he should deserve staying in the team, but we'll touch on that later on. A moment at the ground. So on the way out, we stopped to have a look at the goals behind the Randwick end, and there was a SCG staffer there, and he was sort of standing around a couple of, piles of like grass, and I was sort of standing there loitering with intent, and sort of said, "Oh, g'day, mate, how are you going?" And he came over and we introduced ourselves. There was about 3 or 4 of us with me. So it was a good sport to have a chat to us. But his name's Rick, and he was telling me that the patches of grass were just on standby. If there's any huge divots, then they're ready to go to put in. And I thought, well, you might want to do the centre square after the rugby stuffed us up a couple of weeks ago. But I held on to that facetious comment. But nevertheless, Rick's a Blues fan, and from old, and used to see him at the airport in a former life. But yeah, the Blues ended up playing the Eagles at the SCG on Sunday night, or Sunday Arvo, I think it was, and he was actually due to attend Adam Simpson up in the box for that game. And I thought, oh, go easy on him, mate. If you're as fervent a Blues fan as you are a groundskeeper, then yeah, try and reel it in. But yeah, it was really cool chatting with Rick, and I don't know if I plugged the podcast, but yeah, if he listens to it, I'll just shout out g'day and thanks for looking after the grass at the SCG. It does look in fantastic form, so I will finish with that. All right, Stevo, let's move on to the ABOB medal. So we're going to talk about our 5 best Swans players on the ground using the 5-4-3-2-1 scoring system, with 5 points being the best. Stevo, kick us off.
Yep. I've got Lloyd, 5 points, Parker 4, Hickey 3, Cunningham 2, and Will Hayward got the 1 from me.
Nice one. Okay, I also had Jake Lloyd with 5, Luke Parker with 4, Tom Hickey with 3, James Rowbottom with 2, and Will Hayward with 1. So I believe our divergence was Cunningham and Rowbottom, both in the 2-point position. So let's have a general yarn about Lloyd, Parker, Hickey, and Hayward first, and then we can finish off with Cunningham and Rowbottom.
Perfect. I'll start with Lloyd then. Hey, look, really good control game. I think he's building into a really nice role in the second part of the year, or coming into the second part of the year. Really controlled, drove the ball movement out of the back half, and he barely wasted it. I mean, he was very clean with the footy. That's why I thought he was best on ground.
Yeah, I mean, he continues to rack it up, doesn't he? 27 disposals, 6 marks, 3 tackles, which is good because he's not really known for his tackling, but 7 rebound 50s. I think he's probably at the moment our most consistent back. And that says a lot because Rampy's playing well, McCartan's playing well, Cunningham's playing well. So again, it just shows that our back 6 or 7, and you throw Fox and Hewitt in there as well. Dawson, of course, with his peg is looking very, very good. So, all right, Lukey Parker, what'd you make of him, mate?
Again, and we talked about this, I think, last week or the week before with Kennedy when he got a couple of goals. I really like midfielders who hit the contest hard all day and also hit the scoreboard, and that's what really elevated Parker's game for me. Like, he kicked 1 goal, but 2 shots on goal, including a very important goal at the end of the third term from that set shot, which was a tough shot, really. And that for me was I mean, it's what you always get from Parker, but then if he hits the scoreboard, it's that little bit extra.
Yeah. He just bobbed up at all the right times, didn't he? And just did what he does. And 4 tackles, 5 inside 50s, 4 clearances, and those 27 disposals. Yeah, it was just quite a dominant performance. Tom Rickety Leg Hickey. So he had it strapped up pretty thoroughly this week. He looked all right. He was in for a battle. He was in for a contest against Ryder. That's not to confuse the listeners with Josh Battle, who was also playing in the ruck for the Saints. But yeah, Tom Hickey, he just continues to impress, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's a great name, Josh Battle, isn't it? I think that's one of the best names in footy at the moment, Josh Battle. Yeah, he's a beast, isn't he? Hickey, he's incredible. He was like he won out. He's a ruckman, and he was our best for clearances, contested possessions. Like, the only thing keeping him out of the All Australian team is a bloke called Max Gawn. Honestly, he's had a great season. He keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get on the scoreboard, but I don't know if he has in the past couple of weeks. But it doesn't really matter for the effort he's putting in around the ground. I think you mentioned, clearances, 7. So just incredible work for a ruckman, and just very mobile. And I think he and Amadi chopped out really well together, and it was good to see. At one point in the first quarter, I thought maybe Buddy was going into the ruck because he drifted like well down the field. But anyway, we'll talk about him another week, or we'll talk about him later actually. Okay, and then we had Will Hayward for 1 point. So let me know what you thought about his game, mate.
I think what he is really becoming is a very, very effective additional player in what is already a star-packed forward line, and he has an impact on the game. He pressures really well. He gets the contests. He makes things happen. He only touched the ball 9 times, but he got 3 goals, 2 from that. And that's a fantastic impact from a sort of medium type forward. And interestingly enough, I was looking at the stats from the Brisbane Melbourne game from Friday night, and Kazaya Pickett, who like everyone is in agreement is one of the most exciting small forwards going around in the competition, he kicked 3 goals, 3 from 9 touches and a couple of marks, which is almost the same stats that Hayward had. So I thought it was interesting just to compare in terms of the type of impact on a game and then the way that we look at players from some teams that are maybe on the TV more than the Swans are. If Will Hayward was in one of these big Melbourne teams, I think he would really be getting talked up right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment, mate. And I think he's actually back to that level of consistent performance that he had, I want to say 2018 or 2019, where he's certainly kicking about 20 goals a year, and it's like majority goals. So I think at the moment he's maybe 12 goals, 6 or something like that. I'll double check and make sure we got that accurate for next week. But what that shows is halfway through the season, he's on track for that 24 goal a year. And that is really what we need from a player like him. And then, with all those other players like Buddy and Heaney and, contributing, he just adds that extra, scoring ability. And for him to be consistently kicking is great. So nice one, Wilbur. Okay, Cunningham. You go Cunningham first, and then I'll finish with Rowie.
Yeah, he had a great game last week. I think we both had him in our best last week. And this week, I think he followed up. He seems to be playing, it's hard to tell on telly always, but seems to be playing a bit more of an outside role where they're trying to get the ball into his hands more. And he's using it really, really well. Great to see him getting a bit of reward in terms of what we see in the game versus what he always puts in. So just really pleased to see him kicking on. Yeah,
definitely. For me, Rowie just had another pretty solid game. The guy had our highest tackles again, 6, so which is low for him because he's been getting double digits most weeks. But yeah, he scored 1 goal, 1 behind, and really could have almost gone 3 goals zip. But 15 disposals, not a huge amount of inside 50s, only 1, but just looked very clean and looked very dangerous throughout. And he was actually the player that I picked for a big game and almost delivered on what I predicted. He obviously that behind. I asked 2 from him, but he did pretty well. So anyway, I threw Rowie in there for that reason, was just very impressed in general. I think you have collated a leaderboard update for us, mate.
I do, and it's getting a bit closer. I think last time we gave an update was around about 6 rounds in, or something like that, 5 rounds in. I can't remember. And Callum Mills was leading by a mile, but they're narrowing the gap a little bit because Mills has been around about the 6th or 7th or 8th best player quite a bit the last couple of weeks. So Mills is on 50, he's still well in the lead, but Tom Hickey is creeping up with 37, which is really just, one double best on ground effort, and he's right back in it. And then Parker is on 30, so he's also in touch. And then the next best is 21, Daylight. These 3 are well ahead right now. So Mills, Hickey, and Parker, based on our views of the game, have been the Swans' best 3 for the first 12 rounds at least.
That's interesting because it's news to me as well.
yeah. I only know because I tally it every week.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for that, mate. I appreciate the admin. All right, mate, let's get on with it. I'm going to do a quick fantasy update on our fantasy team, a bevy of bloods, consisting solely of current Swans plus a few ex-Swans to help us out with injury cover. In round 12, ABob scored 1,397 points and ranked 48,847th, which leaves us sitting 66,233rd overall. So again, we've been jumping up the ladder. We improved by another 1,500 points this week. It is a bye round, so a lot of other teams would have been impacted by having a lot of players who did not play. So we'll take the wins when we can get them. In terms of the top 5 scorers of the game, 2 of the top 5 scores were from Swannies, albeit in 4th and 5th. The highest scoring Saint was Jack Steele on 137, which was also the game high. So massive game from him. The top 5 Swans were Lloyd on 100, Cunningham on 99, Parker 97, Mills 96, and Hewitt 92. So what's that? 1, 2, 3 backs, three defenders and 2 midfielders. An awesome thing was the fact that this is Lloydie's 8th 100th plus game, but he's still only averaging slightly lower than Mills. So Lloyd's averaging 100.2 per game, whereas Mills is averaging 107.8 per game due to his higher ceiling. He had some massive scores earlier on in the season. The negative was that Lloyd was the only Swan to score 100 plus points against the Saints. Obviously, that's disappointing. All the rest were 99 or lower, with 16 out of our 22 players scoring 80 or lower. So that sort of points to the fact that we weren't racking it up as much as we had in previous weeks. Trades. If Amati holds, which I'm hoping he does, and I think he will, I'll keep him in the forwards because he's quite versatile because he's listed as a ruck forward, a dual position player. So it gives him really good flexibility, and was very stoked after his very respectable 74 points in only his second game. So Joel Amati, keep it rolling. Cheers, mate. All right, we're going to give a quick VFL update at this point, Stevo. So I'll pass over to you.
Sure. First of all, sorry to everyone listening last week. We said there was going to be no VFL. At the time we recorded, I think there wasn't going to be, or we didn't know that it was going to be. We ended up playing Southport, and we actually weren't even slated to play Southport at all this year because there are so many teams in the VFL that not everyone plays everyone in the season. So we ended up playing Southport from Queensland because both teams were able to because of the Victorian COVID. All their teams are shut. So we played Southport, started pretty well, ended up losing by about 15 points to Southport. They ran over us in the end. Best for the Swans was Lewis Taylor, young Shather from the Central Coast. Clark played well. Blakey, who looked to be playing a bit across half back actually, and Dill Stevens, and then Cal Sinclair. They were all listed as best. For next week, we don't know yet. We're still waiting for information as to who's playing who or if there's games or what, but we'll certainly bring you up to date again next week.
Yeah, nice one. I think the Sharks are coming first at the moment out of 22 teams, but I think they've had a couple of extra games because they've been able to play. But yeah, unfortunate not to get the win, but that's okay. All right, let's move on to AFL hot topics. All right, we're going to kick off with the match review office, and luckily we have nothing to report this week, so all of our players will be fine in that they won't receive fines this week. All right, mid-season draft. Last week we predicted that Paddy McCartan would be picked at 12 for the Swans, but as it turned out, it really was a draft for ruckmen. So 4 rucks went in the top 7 picks, with another 3 going in the following 11 sections. So clubs really took a punt on young talls who'd previously been overlooked in the national and rookie drafts there. And accordingly, we took Lachlan Stretch McAndrew at pick 12. So this is a 210 centimetre, 93 kilogram ex-rugby school level representative player from the Northern Beaches of Sydney. It'll definitely be a work in progress. Could take a couple of years, but very possibly could be our next premiership ruck, much like the ex-Canadian rugger Mike Pike. So there's a nice story if it comes full circle. Any thoughts on that, Stevo?
It's hard to know with the mid-season draft. This is only the second time it's been done, at least in recent years. I think back in the 90s they did it for a little while. And yeah, like you said, it's for people who were overlooked in last year's draft or were delisted. And lots of ruckman, yeah, which was interesting. And this bloke, looking at him, McAndrew, I've watched him a couple of times just in the reserves and stuff, and he looks very much like a long-term project. So, I mean, we're not expecting anything from him anytime soon, but I think the Swans saw someone with some potential that they've had in their VFL team in the last couple of months, and, you know, get him into a full-time football system and see what he can be.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the other reasons was the fact that a lot of other clubs took rucks was like making sure that he was able to stay in our system. So it could have been a strategic pick. I do think that, and we haven't spoken about this, but I think that Paddy McCartan will still be on the radar. But I think with the way that the rest of the league went, it was important to make sure that we kept Stretch within the Swan system. So I'm pretty happy with that. I hope he fulfills his potential. Okay, so another point here we will just quickly report on is that Adam Goodes has declined the AFL's Hall of Fame nomination. I have one thought about this, and I'm like, fair enough. Good on him, basically. How about you, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of commentary around this, and every time Adam Goodes' name comes up to do with anything, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions. What I would do would be refer people to what Eddie Betts said today. Eddie Betts was interviewed about this earlier today being Tuesday, which is when it was announced. And his simple statement was, look, he urged people to just accept the fact that that's what he decided to do. And he was very forthright. He said, look, if you haven't been racially abused, you don't know what it feels like. And the impact is not something that can be easily tossed aside or forgotten in short periods of time. So please just respect the fact that this is what the guy has decided. And, you know, it's not about what other people might like him to do. It's about what he felt was right. And that's it. That's all I've really got to say. If you get a chance, go and watch Eddie Betts. It's a short interview, a couple of minutes. You can find it on the AFL website or somewhere, I'm sure. But he puts it very, very clearly like that in a way that I think makes sense and should be respected.
Definitely. And look, Adam Goodes is the classiest bloke out there. All right. And what he went through was just reprehensible. But like the classy bloke he is, I think he tried to keep it under wraps so that the other players who were nominated, the impact, the happy time that they feel wouldn't be, negatively impacted. So he's, again, like he has throughout his whole career and life, I imagine, is thinking about other people first, putting other people first. So, I'm going to check out that Eddie Betts thing, mate. I haven't seen that yet, but yeah, thanks for the shout out.
It's very short, and Eddie's a great speaker. And Eddie Betts knows as well as anybody that's played football what it's like to be an Aboriginal footballer playing professional football or any level of football, and what that means in terms of the treatment you have to deal with through your entire career and life. And so I think he was a very good person to put those words into the public.
Absolutely, yeah. Well said, Stevo. All right, we're going to have a quick Buddy goal update here. So in round 12, Buddy kicked 2 goals, 1. So he is now currently sitting on 968, still in 7th. In 6th is Jack Titus from Richmond, 1926 to 1943 is when he played. He's on 970, so Buddy needs 3 to leapfrog him to become the 6th greatest goal kicker of all time. So looking forward to that one, obviously. All right, let's go on to the next segment, which is the round ahead. In this last segment, we're going to focus on 3 games. Most importantly, the Swans' next game. Then 2 other games of interest, one introduced by Stevo, the other by me. After that, we'll finish off with all of our tips to the rest of the round. So Swanee's next game is game 2 of round 13, another home game for the 6th place Bloods, taking place this Friday, the 11th of June at the SCG in Sydney against 17th placed Hawthorn Hawks, with first bounce at 7:50 p.m. local time. All right, Stevo, injury status and team changes. How did we pull up health-wise against the Saints?
Well, we thought pretty good. I mean, there was no reported injuries out of it. Then we found out yesterday or today or something that Chad Warner has actually been playing with a bit of a sore leg. So he's likely to miss. I think they pretty much said this week that he's going to miss against I was going to say St Kilda. We're not playing Hawthorn. We're playing, against Hawthorn. So he'd be the only one that'd be a forced change. And then it's a matter of, is there anyone else that might need a rest or isn't playing well or they want to rotate, coming into the bye. It's a bit tricky because there's a bye coming up. So any break maybe is a 2-week break. But at least the reserves seem to be playing, which helps a bit with player rotation.
Certainly, yeah, that definitely helps us. And we're in a bit better position than the Victorian teams, but that's fine by me. Okay, so if Warner is our forced out, who comes in for him? And then in terms of form, actually, we'll do forced first. Sorry, mate, go for it. Who comes in for Warner?
I don't know. Lewis Taylor has been playing really, really good footy in the seconds all year. And he's a player that we know can play at AFL level. He won the Rising Star in his first season. He beat a certain Bontempelli to the Rising Star in his first season. So he's not a rubbish footballer. And we've talked about him before, that maybe it's more of an athletic thing, like the way that the AFL body is now. It's very hard for someone of his physiology to be an elite AFL player. Maybe, we don't know. Because he certainly knows how to play footy, and he kills it in the seconds, and he continues to kill it. And I'm thinking, if ever there's a week that you're going to bring a bloke in and reward some reserves for him and give him a crack in the seniors, I reckon this would be the week to bring in Taylor for me. I'd like to see him get a game.
Yeah, me too, mate. I mean, he was medical sub last week. James Bell was the medical sub against the Saints. So he's definitely in the mix. And yeah, as you're saying, he's been putting together some serious performances there. If not him, surely Stevens or Blakey.
Yeah, one of them, I guess. And I mean, I guess there's three, isn't it? There's Stevens, Blakey, and Bell. They're the three that have been consistently either in and out of the seniors or playing that medical sub role. Like Bell was the medical sub last week, I think, wasn't he?
Against the Saints, yeah.
Yeah, against St Kilda, yeah. So one of those three. I don't know. Blakey looked like he was playing. I only managed to see the first quarter or so of the reserves. I couldn't watch the whole game. I wasn't able to fit it in. But Blakey looked like he was playing across half back a bit, which was interesting. Stevens, we've seen and we like and we want to play more. I don't know. Who would you pick? If you're going to drop someone, like if we say that we agree that we'd like to see Taylor get a crack because he deserves it for Warner, then if we wanted to bring in one of the other three, who would you kick out?
I'd probably give Wicks a break. I mean, he had a quiet first half, but came good in the second half. And I know his position is a difficult position because, you know, unless you're kicking a couple of goals, what you're doing really goes unnoticed. But look, he's only young as well, like 2021 or something. So, you know, maybe we give Warner and Wicks, well, Warner's out, but maybe we give Wicks a rest as well. And then that opens the door again for Stevens. Look, I was a bit disappointed that he was dropped. Because I think we both said that we want him to get a bit of a run at it. So, look, if you had to find someone, and again, it could be a bit stiff, but if you're going to do that to open up for Stevens, Blakey, or Bell, I'd probably say Wicks. But how about you, mate?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, because we've talked about this. I mean, every week we talk about this, but we've talked about Wicks in particular for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I've been quite firm that no, you know, keep him in the team, and I want. Well, it's not my bloody team, is it? Like I'm talking like I get to decide this.
It's our team.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all our team.
We're talking like horses been listening every week and just shuffling magnets around. Hang on, Noddy said this.
You never know.
Yeah, tell you what. Well, it got Cunningham to pull his finger out, didn't it? So, and they dropped Blakey. We've been asking for that. Anyway, yeah. So the last couple of weeks I've been like, nah, we'll keep Wicks in. You know, he's playing a tough role, like you said, and it's the work he's doing without the ball. But this week, I agree. I think that, you know, arrest either that looks like 2 clean weeks off, or more likely 1 week playing a reduced pressure level of football in the VFL and then a week of the bye. Probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him, for a young bloke, just to take a bit of load off him. And then
just reset, and get ready for the rounds ahead. I mean, the other thing is, Stevo, there, sorry to cut you off, is that Ben Ronk had his first game back in a while. So I'm not quite sure how he went. He wasn't listed as best on ground, but then that increases internal competition. So give Wicks a couple of weeks off, and then see that there's some other players who are there, and that should hopefully bring him back up to where he was earlier in the season. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's Wednesday morning now in Australia, so we'll have teams tomorrow night. But yeah, I think. Have you got anything else to add, that mate? Or
no, just that I think I agree with you that if I was going to bring in, Stevens, Blakey, or Bell, at the moment, Stevens.
Yeah, it's got to be Stevens. I mean, it's a contractual discussion as well. Him and Gould, I think we've spoken about. And Gould is, you know, God knows how far away he is, but Stevens for sure. We want to put a few games into him to make sure he stays in the state. Well, ideally within the red and white. Yeah, flight risk for sure.
Flight risk.
Yeah. All right. In terms of Hawthorn, as I read it in the mix of the AFL website, it sounds like Jager O'Meara, that's another cool name of the AFL, isn't it? Is looking to be fit following his concussion against Carlton a few weeks ago. So that's probably the only comment there for Hawthorn. Performance prediction. Okay, which Swanee flies high and why, Stevo?
This week, I want to see, and I've been going for some pretty easy targets lately. Like I'm picking Buggy to kick goals and Papa to kick goals and Heaney to kick goals. So I'm going to try and branch out a bit this week. I'd like to see McDonald keep building some confidence. And I'm not even asking for like massive performances. What I'd really like to see out of him is a sort of consistent, solid role across 4 quarters. Because against the Saints, he was pretty good in the first half. He touched the ball, I think, 5 times in the first half, kicked a couple of goals. In the second half, he had a solitary possession and no marks after half time. So 4 quarters out of young Logan McDonald, just to keep building himself up as a AFL level footy player.
Yeah, good call, mate. He did look good, very good at point at times in that game. I want to see Joel Amati back up his game against the Saints. I want him to get 10 disposals, 10 hitouts, 5 marks, and 2 goals. So not asking for much for a game for a player who's potentially looking to play his third game. But I was really just keen to see how he went because other than the legitimate tools we have in the ruck department, we obviously have Amati and McLean who can chop in. And I was looking at their I guess height and weight, and he's 197 centimeters, 97 kegs, so he's much shorter than like the likes of Gawn and even Stretch McAndrew, but he's basically the same specs as Paddy Ryder, 196 or 7 centimeters, and maybe Paddy Ryder's a couple of kilos lighter. So I was really keen to see how he went against him, and he had a couple of contests against him, but mostly against Battle. But yeah, he did very well. So I think you can hear the excitement in my voice about Joel Amati. I'm really hoping he can back it up and excuse me, and just continue to play really well. And then obviously that makes McLean, it forces him to step up in the seconds as well, because I see that as the internal competition there as well. Opposition danger players. Okay, which Hawk players do we need to be wary of?
I've got one here. Can I ask you quickly, just going back to Joel Amati, is he eligible for the Rising Star or no? Is he too old?
I don't see why he wouldn't. It might just be an age thing.
Yeah,
I thought he was still under 21, but it certainly he would clear it in terms of games played.
Is it so it's 21 is the age for the thing. I've got the
you got to be 20 you can't turn 21, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the player chart now. Now he's 21 years and 9 months already, so he's probably too old for it.
Oh yeah, I think that rules him out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a shame because he was good. Like I had him. Like I was close to giving him votes this week. I thought he played a really good game.
Yeah, I almost gave him one, but then that's why I chose not to, because I thought Hayward was good enough, but I wanted to mention him throughout for his game because I thought it was very impressive. Very, very good.
Strong contested marks, especially like for a young kid or youngish kid to have that composure and willingness to take those tough contested marks was really good. I was loving watching him.
Yeah. And at key times as well, really helped us out. So
he was calm. That was the thing. He was really calm. Sorry, I'll go back to the Hawthorn player that I should be talking about.
Mate.
We could just talk about the Swans players and forget about the Hawks. That'd be the other option, I suppose. And I guess we already talked about Jaeger Amira, didn't we? I mean, he's a very good player, assuming he comes back from his head knock, and we don't know because he had a really nasty knock a couple of weeks ago to his head. Look, the Hawks have had a pretty bad year, but when they've been competitive in games, he's been at the absolute centre of it all the time. So he's the one for me to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Look, for me, it's the ex-Swan and 2018 Brownlow medalist, Tom Mitchell. And I think he's going to need a big game because he's been a bit quiet in past weeks. He needs to show what he's got because I hear, and this is breaking news as at yesterday, that he's open to being traded to a club in a premiership window. And word on the street is that is Richmond specifically. So that's pretty big news if that comes to pass. But I guess I don't know who they're going to squeeze out of that midfield in the Tigers. And I don't know if they're still in the window or not. But I mean, you can never rule the current Tigers out. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting article I came across. But
yeah, right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe they get
4 years. Yeah, I don't know. But he's not really an inside bull or anything. He's sort of more of that in and out player. But 4 years with the Swans, and then played close to a best on ground in the 2016 grand final, and then unfortunately left the Swans to move over to the Hawks, who he's obviously gone on and done wonderful things with them. So he really needs to be shut down. And I think maybe Rowie on him and probably Mills on O'Meara. But yeah, all right, winning formula requirements. Okay, what do we need to do to get the win, Stevo?
This is a tough game in a way, in a sense that this is a game that every single pundit in the AFL world is tipping the Swans, and most of them are probably tipping the Swans by a fair margin. But we say this every time, and we know this because we've dropped games to teams that on paper we should have done. that there's no easy games in the AFL. We played Collingwood, who was close to bottom a couple of weeks ago, and they jumped us, and we have to fight back into that game. And so I think in this one we can't do that. We can't give up these starts to teams and then have to fight our way back in. I just want to get on top early, not give them any sort of chance, because any AFL level team is capable of playing well on their day. And this is a game that we need to win to cement this top 8 spot that we want so we can play finals. And I don't know, I'd rather not leave it to the last couple of minutes to lock up the 4 points. I'd rather just really put the foot down hard and say, no, we're a top 8 team and we're going to play our best footy today. And too bad, watch out. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, Stevo. Look, they're a low-scoring team. They're 17th for goals scored in the league. But that said, they're an effective and high disposal team. So a little bit like similar to our game style. They focused on uncontested possession and handballs to exit the defensive 50. They're actually ranked first in rebound 50s per game and rebound 50s game differential. So the gap between their rebound 50s and ours. So we actually just cannot allow their halfbackers to get the ball and dictate terms. So we're talking about Hardwick, CJ, Jaff, Impey, and even to an extent Greaves. If these guys start to rack up the ball, then that will give them very good service going forward. But whether or not they can put that together on the scoreboard, we just can't allow them to even get in that position. So we really need to keep that forward 50 pressure on, especially those 4 players, force turnovers, and then convert from there. And I will say the Hawks are one of our modern rivals. So we always have tough games against them, and we'll actually see that in the previous 5 encounters. So we'll move on to that now. So we'll look at recent form and our previous meetings. So obviously, as we've touched upon, the Swannies are 8 wins and 4 losses from 12 games. And we have lost 1, our last 5 games. The Hawks, conversely, are 2 wins and 9 losses from 11 games. They had a bye last week, and they have lost the last 5. That said, they have played in 4 games with single-digit results. So they had 2 wins and 2 losses. So they beat the Bombers by 1, the Crows by 3, and obviously they're both bottom 8 teams. But they also lost to Geelong and lost to the Roos by 5 and 7 points, respectively. Obviously, the Cats are in the top 8, and the Roos are the current Wooden Spooners. So a bit hard to get a trend out of that one. The rest of the games have been double-digit results. So 7 out of 11 losses. So their average losing margin is 37.28, so 37 points. 3 out of those 7 have been top 8 teams, and 4 out of those 7 losses have been bottom 8 teams. So I think that ties into your point exactly, Stevo. When they're on, they can push anyone, but they just haven't really been consistent this year, especially on the scoreboard. If we look at the past 5 years, so we're looking at 2020, 2019, 2018, 2018, and 2017. So, sorry, the past 5 encounters. And in 2018, we played them twice. It's been 3 to the Swans and 2 to the Hawks. So we beat them last year by 7 points at the SCG. The year before that, we beat them 19 points at the SCG. The year before that, they beat us 9 points at the SCG. The year before that, we beat them by 8 points at the MCG. And the year before that, they beat us by 6 points at the MCG. So we score on average 72 points a game, and they score on average 68 points a game. And the margin is about six and a half points. So it's a close game when we play the Hawks. And this could go back to the rivalry. You know, we've got Kennedy, Buddy. These guys are like Hawks legends, really. More so Kennedy's father and grandfather. But Buddy, obviously, big story there coming over from the Hawks. And then, of course, there was that run in during Hawthorn's three-peat where we played them once, beat them in 12, and then lost to them in 14. So I would call them a modern rival up there with the likes of the Eagles and to an extent the Bulldogs. So this is certainly a bogey game, I believe. But that said, tipping, Stevo, who are you going to go with?
It's in Sydney, isn't it? It's at the SCG. We said that, didn't we?
SCG, yeah, on Friday night.
Yeah, sweet. So that's 3 games in a row in the SCG.
Yeah.
So that's all right. This must be what it's like to be Richmond or Collingwood or one of these teams. You just play at home. This is wonderful. I like this whole thing. I feel terrible for the Victorians with their plight, but it's not bad playing at home every week, is it? Anyway, Sydney to win. That's it. I won't go further.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Swannies as well, but put on notice that it may be a tight game, hoping that it's not, as your point earlier, hoping they kick ahead and it's a comfortable day for us, but need to be careful nevertheless. Okay, Stevo, if a group of Swans is called a bevy, then what is a group of Hawks called?
Oh, mate, I looked this up and I actually learnt some new words doing this week. A boil, a kettle, if they're riding in a thermal, which is something to do with the wind or the breeze or the sky, or I'm not really sure what that means. Or a knot, or a spiraling, or a screw, or a stream of hawks are all of the ones that I found. I think you can just make them up yourself. I don't think there's any rules about this anymore. Because I swear that the internet is full of this. It's unbelievable.
They're all sort of they all sort of allude to heat, don't they? There's like the boil, kettle, thermal, stream. Like there's all a little bit of heat in there, but yeah, okay. Nothing really jumps out there for me.
I thought I'd get a bit provocative, and I'll give a bit of context to this as to why I'm allowed to be this unpleasant to Hawthorn supporters. Not them, not Hawthorn supporters, but in jest and in love. I come from a family of Swans fans, but on one other side of my family, they're all mad Hawks fans. And growing up in the 80s as a Swan supporter and early 90s, when we were getting thrashed pillar to post week to week, it was painful. Like you said, kids got into the SCG for free if they were red and white because no one would go and watch them. They were that bad. And growing up as an 80s and 90s kid with cousins who were Hawthorn supporters when they were winning everything was not fun. And and it was like they just expected to win all the time, right? They just, oh yeah, there's another grand final this year. Yeah, we're probably going to win. And they didn't even consider that it was an option that they wouldn't be in the grand final, let alone win the bloody thing. So I think of an entitlement of Hawks because there's this genuine feeling of entitlement to success. And a Hawk is a very proud animal too, So an entitlement of Hawks is the one that I thought I'd add to the internet spiraling of Hawthornness or whatever you want to call it. That's
I'm in favor of that. I love it, Stevo. I love it. I love it that it's a little bit off center. It's got a bit of a history there. There's a bit of passion in your logic there. I love it. An entitlement of Hawks, and you could even say that there's definitely that sense of entitlement still pervading. Although this year's been a bit of a rude awakening to them. I think it was Jeff Kennett saying they wanted to get another premiership cup within 5 years, I think last year or the year before,
absolutely,
without acknowledging that they actually might need to go through a rebuild.
To get there, yeah. Like I had a cousin, just like one final thing on the family thing. One of my cousins, or my cousin's kid, actually, I call them my cousins, but my cousin's kids. And she was born, I think, the year just before the first of the Hawthorn three-peat. So it wasn't until she was 4 years old that she had lived as a person in a year that Hawthorn wasn't premiers. So if that's not entitlement, what is, Like this kid, she's just didn't realise that Hawthorn didn't win every year till she was at school for the first time. It's amazing. Good on them. They've done well. They've been a very successful club. So like full respect to their success. But yeah, an entitlement very successful. Hawks.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll second that. An entitlement of Hawks.
Let's go.
Thank you for that homework, Stevo.
You're welcome.
All right. Next, we're going to have a look at a couple of games of interest in the round ahead. And as I understand it, Stevo, you are going to kick us off because your game comes before mine. Go for it.
Sure. I've got the first game. It's on Thursday, actually. This is one of those rounds that goes Thursday through to Monday, I think. And so Port Adelaide are playing Geelong on Thursday at the Adelaide Oval. They are playing at 7:10 local time. Port's coming fifth, Geelong are third. They're actually both 8 and 3. It's just percentage that's splitting the two teams at the moment. But they're both coming off the bye, so should both be rested. Different teams seem to respond psychologically to the bye and whatnot. But yeah, so in terms of players in and out, Port's going to have to replace Orazio Fantasia, their leading goal kicker. He's out with a knee injury, so they'll need to find someone else to come in for him. Geelong has got an absolute laundry list of blokes lining up that want to come back into the team. The two most likely is Duncan and Guthrie. Look like they'll probably play this week, but then also possibly coming back in. If not this week, then certainly the next week or two. We've got Dangerfield, Blysabs, O'Connor, and Mears. So some very, very handy footballers due to come back in the Geelong team at some point, if not this week. In terms of their form, the Cats have won 4 in a row before their bye. Port won 3 of their last 4 before the bye, so both looking pretty solid. In that 4-week period, both only played one sort of contender team, like top 8 team, and that was the Cats. They smashed Richmond in their fixture, and Port lost to the Bulldogs, not by much, but they only played one good quarter. They kicked 8 of their 12 goals in a single quarter against the Dogs, so they didn't look that amazing, and they've been a bit up and down, Port. I think Geelong's big forwards, if they can get good delivery, can probably chop Port up. Port's got a good backline. Our dear friend Alir is down there for Port in the backline, but they've got very strong forwards in Cameron and Tom Hawkins, and Gay Rowan, ex-Swan, has been popping up, doing well down there this year. For Port Adelaide, their forward line's a bit of a worry for me. Charlie Dixon's going to have to stand up, I think, because Fantasia's not in there. He's been kicking a lot of their goals. I think Dixon's going to have to play a strong hand down there. And I think overall, I'm going to tip Geelong. I think they're just a bit more even all over the field, and their forward line is probably capable of inflicting more grief onto Port than the other way. So I'm going to tip Geelong. What do you reckon, mate?
I think I'm going to go Power at home. But I think it's going to be very close. And I don't know the numbers, but Geelong after the bye don't have a great record, I think. But I may have that wrong. Maybe it's before the bye. It's one of the two. But either way, this should be a very good game. And I just think that Port will get over the line. But should be a cracker.
Yeah, it should be. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right, mate, I'm going to look at Melbourne versus Collingwood. So in Game 7, the first place Melbourne Demons will play the 16th place Collingwood Magpies at the SCG on Monday, the 14th of June at 3:20 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, of course, for the Queen's birthday clash. Melbourne had no injuries last round. The key outs are still Tomlinson with that season-ending knee. Viney has a toe and still a couple of weeks away. But it looks like Langdon will come back in after his concussion. And there's talk of Melksham, Sparrow or Jordan being the ones that make way, which would be stiff. But Langdon is certainly a key player for them, so it needs to get back in there. Collingwood, Braden Sire did his jaw in round 12, so he'll be out. Other key outs for the Pies are Adams, Grundy and Howe, so there are 3 massive outs for them. But Main looks like he's going to come back in after having been rested against the Crows. So it looks like Brown, Main, McRae for Sire, Madgen, and Rantel, the young player there. So in terms of recent form, the Ds are 11 wins, 1 loss out of 12 games, and they are win-win, loss, win-win. Collingwood are 3 wins and 9 losses from 12 games, and they are win, loss, 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 win. Key players for Melbourne are Lever, May, Salem, Petrarca, Oliver, Gawn, McDonald, Pickett and Fritsch. Collingwood are Moore, Maynard, Roughhead, Dacos, Crisp, Main, Pendlebury or Dependlebury, as the traders call him. Oh, shout out to those boys. Jordan De Goey and Myercheck. Look, Melbourne have only lost 1 game, as we all know, and that was against Adelaide in round 10 by 1 point in controversial circumstances. So, look, that's their only blemish in an otherwise perfect season so far. They've just come off wins against grand final contenders, the Lions and the Dogs. They've scored 50 points on Hawthorn, who are coming 17th, and that's their biggest margin of the year. For Collingwood, all 3 of their wins have been against bottom 8 teams, the Crows, the Roos and the Blues. Although they have had 2 1-point losses against 2 top 8 teams. So they lost by 1 point against the Lions early on and then 1 point against Port Adelaide. So the Lions are obviously 4th and 5th. So, they'd be sitting better if they'd managed to get those 2. They also lost to Sydney, our dear Swannies, by 30 points at the SCG most recently. In terms of Melbourne, look, they're the form team this year. They're winning games by 4.5 goals on average per game. Collingwood is a club in absolute turmoil on and off the field, losing games by 3 goals on average per game. So, look, the Pies have already played and lost at the SCG this year. I believe the Demons will continue that trend for them. For me, the D's to win big. How about you, Stevo?
Definitely, I agree. And I'd like to see, it'd be great to see a good, because it's a public holiday Monday, it'd be great to see a good crowd in the SCG too. So I think there's always a pretty strong Collingwood supporter base in Sydney. Whenever we play them, there seem to be a lot of them turn up. Maybe they travel, but I don't know. But yeah, I reckon it'd be great if Sydney could get 20,000 for this game and show the Victorian football community that, you know, we support football. It isn't the Swans and the Giants. It'd be nice to see a good crowd in there.
I second that. And I always thought it was, if you're a Collingwood fan, it didn't matter where you were. You'd always come out of the Collingwood work. To boom, Tish, finish off with a high-level pun there. All right, let's run through the rest of the tips.
It's still early there, right? It's early in the morning.
It's early. I haven't had a coffee yet.
Yeah.
Look, game 1, I picked the Power, you picked the Cats. Game 2, we're both picking the Swannies. Game 3 is 11th place Dockers versus 13th place Suns in Perth on Saturday twilight. I'm going Dockers.
Dockers too. But one thing to say with this one, Matt Rowell looks like he's due to come back after another really tough injury. The young fella, top draft pick a couple of years ago. So good on him. Maybe he gets a good run for the Suns.
Yeah, fingers crossed. He's had a terrible run of late. I'm trying my best to squeeze him into my other fantasy teams because that guy is a gun. All right, game 4, we've got 12th place Saints versus 11th place Crows up in Cairns on Saturday night. I'm going the Saints.
I'll go the Crows just because I kind of like the Crows. I got a soft spot for them.
Yeah, Matty Nick's doing good things. Game 5, 18th place Kangaroos versus 10th place Giants down in Hobart on Sunday afternoon. I'm going the Giants.
Me too, Giants.
Game 6, 7th place Eagles versus 8th place Tigers over in Perth on Sunday night. Oh, I'm going the Tigers.
Who they play? Eagles? That's actually hard.
Eagles in Perth.
Yeah. Nah. They're still missing a lot of players, aren't they, Eagles? I'm going to stick with the Tigers as well. They're starting to get some form up. And they're going to have Tom Mitchell next year too, so they got to play for spots down there. The midfielders are on notice.
That's right. Game 7 is the Demons and the Pies, and we're both picking the Demons there. All right, Stevo, have you got anything else to add?
Nah, just looking forward to some footy. Let's get another win in before the rest.
Nice one. Fingers crossed. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. On behalf of the Bevy, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. We look forward to you joining us next time. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Bevy of Bloods for updates and announcements. Please also feel free to check out A Quick Bevy with Swans fans on YouTube and Spotify or wherever you check out your videos and podcasts. A Quick Bevy is a 10-minute weekly bonus series by me and another red and white tragic, my mate Chris, in which we take it in turns racing the clock to answer some Swans-related questions. Until then, up the Bloods and can you Swannies?